Good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. We bring you the developing news and the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay. The stories that we're watching this Tuesday, June 3rd. Transport Secretary Vince Dizon says the EDSA rehabilitation project is only postponed, not canceled. He said President Marcos ordered a one-month pause to explore faster, better ways to lessen inconvenience to commuters. Dizon also revealed during his confirmation hearing at the Commission on Appointments, which is ongoing as we speak, that President Marcos did not accept his courtesy resignation, so he's staying on. The Department of Health is calling on Malacanang to declare a national public health emergency amid a surge in HIV cases nationwide. The DOH said daily infections have climbed to an average of 57, mostly affecting young adults aged 25 to 34. Meanwhile, the agency confirmed that no Mpox vaccines are currently available in the country due to limited global supply. The Senate has approved several LEDAC priority bills on third reading amid delays on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial. Among the measures passed were the right-sizing bill and a bill that will empower the MTRCB to regulate online streaming content. The upper chamber also passed bills on free funeral services, animal welfare, and lifelong learning. Senate President Cheese Escudero said the impeachment trial is set to begin on June 11th, just days before the 19th Congress adjourns. And outgoing Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia has filed an electoral protest before the Commission on Elections, contesting the results of the 2025 midterm elections. Garcia claimed that the outcome in over 4,000 clustered precincts do not reflect the true will of the people. She urged COMELEC to act swiftly on her protest to uphold electoral integrity. And as always, joining me today, we've got Storycon's resident political pundit, Ronald Llamas. Welcome back to the studio. Matagal tayo hindi nagkita.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Natuwala ako dun sa as always.
As always? As always, you're our political pundit. From the Philippine Star, Editor-in-Chief, Ami Pamintuan. Hi, Ami.
Hi, Reg. Hi, political pundit.
Okay.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Happy Tuesday. 3
Kala ko.
days lang ako nawala. Ang dami nangyari. First of all.
Nangyayari siya pag wala ka.
Oo nga. Tama nga.
May iniintay pa tayo ngayon. Dapat
Yes.
ongoing press conference, I think on phase 3 of the reorganization.
Ni Bersamin ngayon.
Iniintay natin from Malacanang.
4 o'clock sabi nila. But so far, it hasn't kicked off. But we're waiting on the third tranche of names that will either be retained or fired.
Ilang tranches ba yan?
Hindi ko nga alam eh. So, I know yung
Marami na
latest.
kasi pati na GOCC.
Oo nga eh. Pati heads of agencies and all GOCCs, right?
Bureaus.
And sinabi mo na to before. This was your point before. Is there a point to dragging it out this long, right? Na what is it? Second week na, no? Since it was announced,
Yes.
the big bold reset of the cabinet. Tapos we're finding things out in trickles. Like kunyari, si Transport Secretary Vince Dizon will be retained, pero nalaman natin kasi nagko-confirmation hearing siya ngayon at the Senate, and he admitted that his resignation was denied.
Denied. Hindi natin alam kung sino pa yung mga na-deny.
Oo.
Dahil halimbawa, sa security cluster, halos lahat ni-reject eh. Except Secretary Anyo.
Talaga?
Oo,
Yes.
except Secretary Anyo. So, anong ibig sabihin nun?
Ano nga ibig sabihin nun?
Hindi ko alam.
Sinabi ni John Vic Remulla, si Secretary Anya daw, nagbigay ng intel about the trip of President Duterte to Hong Kong and back. Tumulong daw siya ng process na yon. I'm not saying na ito dahilan kung bakit siya na-retain, pero binanggit lang naman yon.
You mean to say nagbigay siya ng information to the Duterte side?
No. To the administration.
Okay.
Ano, National Security Advisor, meron siyang intelligence fund na talagang kailangan ng NSA. No? So, nagagamit niya yon sa ganyang klaseng monitoring.
Nakakuha siya. Siya nagbigay dun sa team There was a team monitoring the movements. Kasi hindi ba medyo magulo ng panahon na yon, na aalis daw ba si President Duterte, pupuntang Hong Kong, may speculation, babalik daw ba siya. Eh alam naman nung Duterte camp na meron nang arrest order.
Yes.
Kaya hindi natin alam. So people were tracking his movements in Hong Kong.
Paano yung economic team? Nireject in toto yung kanilang courtesy resignation. Ganun din yung most of the security cluster, except Secretary Anyo. Kaya may tanong,
So it's very telling kung the whole team was retained except for him, right? What are you trying to say there? Hindi natin alam at this point. And yung last press con ni ES Bersamin, for instance, kung hindi pa tinanong whether retained or not sila Secretaries Remulla, both Boying and John Vic, hindi pa yata niya ma-mention. Kasi tinanong lang siya at the very end, what about...
Or itong CA hearing ni Vince Tison, nung tinanong lang siya, tsaka lang nalaman.
Yes.
So hindi natin alam kung sino talaga yung in-accept, sino yung hindi. No? Kaya...
So it comes back to the communication of it all, no? Yung messaging nila around this. I mean, when they came out, they said bold reset. Where is the bold part of it, right? Is what I'm wondering. Ano pa?
Yung bagong DICT daw retained din. Saka yung sa PCO, the chief, hindi si Claire Castro, will be staying in his post until further notice. Yan.
Yun yung
Yan
delikado.
yung mga bago ngayong araw.
Yun yung delikado yung until
further
further
Ikaw lang
notice.
ni J. Ruiz, ano?
Ha?
Yung mga bagong appointee, almost all of them retained eh.
Yes.
Kasi J. Ruiz, kailan lang? Wala pa 6 months.
February, I think, or
Yeah.
March. Yeah, early this year.
Kaya
yun.
nga.
March.
Kaya yan, mga yung economic team, ewan ko kung ang laki-laki ng problema dun sa budget, I don't know kung bakit si Ralph Recto na-retain.
At saka sa economic targets from 7 to 6 to 5, di ba?
Oo.
Oo nga, yung field
Kasi
health.
yun yung gulo, di ba? Yung budget mess yun eh. Yung sa impounding ng GOCC, yung PhilHealth.
Yes.
Yun yung circular ni Ralph Recto eh.
Ang isa kasing purpose ng revamp is to protect the principal, to protect the president.
Yeah.
Para yung mga problema sa mga departamento at saka sa bansa ay hindi masyadong aabot sa kanya. Pero kung may problema ka sa ekonomiya, tapos yung buong economic cluster ay niretain mo, may tatama sa'yo. Pag niretain mo yung Secretary of Agriculture, tapos may problema sa agriculture, tatama sa'yo. Diba? Mauunawaan ko yun sa security dahil medyo united naman sila halimbawa sa external threats, West Philippine Sea. Nagtaka lang ako bakit in limbo pa si Secretary Anyo.
At this point, good question.
At
Alam
kung
mo,
kung may alam ako, sa akin na lang.
By the end of the show, we will tease that out of him. The other thing in limbo, itong EDSA rehab. So before I left the show to go to a conference, tuloy pa. Tapos biglang nag-announce over the weekend na,
Sinasabi, 1 month
I thought
lang.
it was canceled.
Hindi, 1 month lang naman
Suspended
eh.
lang
1
pala. Okay, so it's in limbo. And now they're...
Parang nag-explore sila ng out-of-the-box solutions. Pero, siyempre, maraming reklamo. Dahil nasubukan na yan before eh. It didn't work eh. So, lalo na, medyo mababa yung approval ratings ngayon ng presidente. Baka makadagdag yan, no?
Of course, makakadagdag yan.
Yes, pero at the same time, parating ang ASEAN. No?
Yes.
Hindi naman pwedeng masyadong...
They knew all of that going
masyadong traffic sa EDSA. Darating yung mga heads of
Kaya nga
state.
sabi ko, palipatin na lang yung ASEAN. That's just a 2-day conference. Maximum yan 5 days, including the ministerial meetings. Kaya, napakalaki naman ng Pilipinas, di ba?
No, Ani, this is the annual hosting. So the events will be spread out throughout the year. Hindi yung main event would be 2 to 5 days. But
you don't have to
but there will be
you don't have to hold it in Manila, no? Napakarami natin magagandang lugar eh.
Yeah, I agree. But throughout the calendar year there will be lots of events around ASEAN pag nag-host tayo. And again, remember, we took the hosting duties over from Myanmar. Sila naman talaga dapat next year. Then the Philippines, President Marcos said, okay, kami na lang because of the issues in Myanmar. So
Pero yung messaging kasi dyan, parang yung presidente nakikinig sa mga reklamo ng mga katulad nila Ami Pamintuan. No? Nakikinig sila
At
sa
si
mga
Reggie Lalo, gumagamit siya ng EDSA. Ako yung galit ako sa'yo.
Ako yung galit na galit.
May good news
Nakikinig
ako
sila
sa'yo.
sa mga middle class na katulad nyo.
Ano yan, Ami?
Sa Biyernes, walang coding. Oh.
Nakikinig. Kami kasi mga...
Bakasyon eh,
Kasi
bakasyon.
holiday.
Dilada.
One day lang.
Oo.
Kami kasing elites,
Wala
hindi namin
kang
problema
holding.
yan eh. Kami mga nasa naghaharing uri, hindi namin problema yan.
Kayong mga may
Kayong
chopper.
mga lower middle class na problema yan.
illicits.
So, ang sinasabi ng presidente ay nakikinig siya. Nag-empathize siya. Pero
I don't agree. Because if you really listened, you would have realized this was a bad idea before it was announced.
Yeah.
Ha? Really listening means, okay, so for example, dun sa announcement that they were suspending the EDSA rehab, there was a line there that said, oh, we're going to look into whole of government approach for a solution to this. I'm like, hindi ba dapat before pa? I mean, you mean to say that you're only thinking of a whole of government approach now, not before the EDSA rehab was announced? Is right? I don't know. It just struck me as a little bit tone deaf, is what I'm saying. Na okay, there was an uproar after in-announce, pero matagal na pinag-usapan to. Like I said, Jan Feb pa lang, tinatanong na namin DPWH. We know the EDSA rehab is coming up. Where is the traffic alleviation plan? Wala at that point.
Yeah.
And
Ang problema kasi dahil padagdag yung dami ng sasakyan, hindi naman natatagdagan yung mga kalsada.
Yes.
So kinakailangan mo talaga mag-isip ng out of the box.
Yes.
Halimbawa, sabi ko nga isang araw, may nakita akong model na plano eh. Hindi ko na sasabihin kung anong company yon. Parang
Ayoko niyang toll road dyan eh.
hindi, elevated na kwan. Pero kung ODA yan, pwede namang hindi toll eh. No, kung gagaling sa official development aid. Yung parang jigsaw na kayang tapusin in 1 year, pero above sa MRT, above sa traffic.
Is it safe?
Tapos,
It's safe?
Oh, dahil kung yung isang credible company na may track record ang gagawa niyan, katulad yung gumawa ng Skyway, French yan eh. French contractor yan. So, yung problema mo sa right of way, na usual problems eh. Sa ating
Yes.
transportation system. Doon naipit si Secretary Bautista. Wala siya magawa dahil sa
Yung sa
right
subway,
of way.
because of the subway build-out, you mean?
Hindi lang.
Tagal ng right of way.
Everything. Dahil lumalaki ang populasyon mo, dumadami ang populasyon ng sasakyan,
Yeah.
lalo na tayo, hindi naman natin dinidispose yung mga lumang sasakyan, nagpa-pile up yan. So, anong gagawin mo? Diba? So, yung ibang bansa, tinataasan yung taxes sa sasakyan para kaunti bumibili. At the
Yes.
same time,
Congestion pricing.
ini-improve ang
Yung
mass transportation. Ibig sabihin, hindi pwedeng isa lang eh. Yung sinasabi yung whole of government approach.
O kaya nga.
Katulad ng ginagawa sa subway, pero medyo matagal pa yan at saka hindi naman ganun kalami, hindi naman milyones yung sasakay dyan. No? Siguro at most mga 500,000. No? So, ganun. Lumalaki ang populasyon mo. Ano ba tayo ngayon? 115 million? 120?
110,
No? Mga ganun na. So, at sa atin kasi, parang US, ang kultura natin is kotse. No? Yun ang ating kwan.
And yun na nga, so, I mean, these whole of government, the whole of government approach should have started way before. For example, I saw an interview where the business clubs were saying they were not consulted on it. Bakit hindi sila na-consult? About the potential economic impact. Because of course,
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about more congestion within the CBDs,
isang problema kasi
right?
natin, Reg, no, dahil one term lang ang presidente, at usually yung first year mo ay learning curve, at yung last year mo ay lame duck. May 4 years ka para gawin at implement itong mga big ticket projects na ito, na usually takes years, even decades. No? Yun yung problema, no? Dahil nga ganyan. So may mga nagpo-propose, pwede bang baguhin yung terms, no? Katulad sa US, 2 terms for 4 years. So ganun yung kwan.
That also has unintended consequences.
Yes, kaya ginawa yan to prevent paano ginawa yan as a people power constitution. Ino-oppose yung threats ng martial law, no? Pero after 40 years, baka kinakailangan i-adjust. Baka, I'm not too sure, no? Kaya
Charter change yan.
Oo, dahil ayun nga.
Charter change yan.
Dahil wala ka masyadong magawa eh, no? Halimbawa, kung naging presidente ka, anong gagawin mo, no?
Speaking of, we have breaking news. Si Secretary Dizon has just been approved by the Commission on Appointments. So he is now officially the Transport Secretary. The hearing was led by Senate Chairperson Grace Poe, and then the appointment will be deliberated in the next Senate plenary with a caucus scheduled on Wednesday. So that's just formalities. Pero yes, so he got confirmation from the CA to become Transport Secretary. Sabi, nung in-announce siya, I remember he was called the Action Man.
Ba't natawa ka?
I mean,
Ibig sabihin
we
yung-
need action people in the
Ibig sabihin yung iba, walang action.
Hindi ko alam. Naalala
Hindi,
ko.
ang tawa mo eh.
Hindi, sabi ni President Marcos, he's an action man. Or and then, si E.S. Bersamin pala nagsabi noon, he's an action man. So I'm glad. But, you know,
Ang hugot nun, yung iba baka kapos action.
hindi sila inaction man.
Hindi, sinabi naman yun ng di ba, ng gobyerno, yung mga underperformers will be replaced.
Oo.
Yung
Kaso,
underperformers.
kaso yung ibang underperformers, nalipat lang eh.
Oo.
Oo nga. Saka
Well,
actually,
we
iba
don't know.
na-retain.
We don't know. The other thing that happened whilst I was away, akala ko June 2, mag-reading na on the formal charges. Naging June 11. What happened there?
Ay nako, ang gulo-gulo niyan.
Forthwith
Ang gulo-gulo ng kasong yan. Di na malaman.
Forthwith.
Di na malaman kung saan papunta yung kasong yan.
Ay, hindi mo
Matutuloy pa ba? Yan ang tanungan ngayon, Ronald. Matutuloy pa
Well,
ba yung
nung
trial na
nagsimula
yan?
kasi yung forthwith na yan, parang nakikita yung writing on the wall eh. Tapos nung na-postpone yung June 2 to June 11, June 12 holiday, June 13 end of session. So, anong ibig sabihin yan, Ami?
Di nga malaman ngayon eh. Actually, nag-umpisa na sa House yung problema sa forthwith, di ba? Dapat pagka-file, nagpunta na doon sa justice. Ano, bakit hindi? Yun naman yung isa ding sinasabi ni Cheese. Bakit doon sa House, hindi nyo ang tagal-tagal ng forthwith.
Yeah, pero it doesn't matter eh. Pag naakyat na sa Senate, dapat action na nila. Kaya nga, hiniwalay sa legislation, sa legislative definition ng Senate, kaya hiniwalay yung ibig sabihin ng impeachment. Dahil sui generis
Ang tanong ngayon,
ang impeachment kasi is about accountability.
Ang tanong ngayon, Ronald, yung pagbagal na yan ni Cheese,
Ano yung
meron ba yung
ibig sabihin?
meron bang suporta yan
Yes.
ng Malacanang?
Yes.
Well, ang paliwanag ni Cheese,
Yan ang tanong.
napanood ba yung press con kahapon? Ang daming if at all eh. Kailan ko nakarinig ng press con na napakaraming if at all. If at all.
Yan na nga. Hindi. Nag-ano sila
If at
sarili
all,
ng
no?
rules, ano?
Well, may sinagot siya na it has nothing to do with the Senate presidency. Pag sinabi mo yun, parang iba yung dating eh. No? It had nothing to do with the Senate presidency. Yun ang paliwanag niya eh. Dahil binabanatan siya na, ano ba yan? Negosasyon for the Senate presidency? No, kaya nangyayari 'yan, no? So the plot thickens eh. Dahil nagsimula 'yan doon sa forthwith. Ang sinasabi ng legal luminaries, pag napasa na, whether late o hindi, basta napasa na, aaksyonan niya. Dahil tigil na kayo. Oo, 'yun ang ibig sabihin nun eh. No? Titignan mo yung deliberation sa 1987 Constitution. 'Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Kaya ginawang detalyado yung impeachment proceedings. Kaya ginawang separate yung impeachment. Dahil ang sinasabi sa konstitusyon, hiwalay na yan sa Senate as a legislative body.
And
Korte na yan.
Wala na,
Sui
tapos na eh.
generis nga.
Tapos na eh.
Sui generis, as you pointed
Lumipas na
out.
yung panahon.
Yeah.
Ano eh.
Hindi,
Lumipas na.
meron pang ilang araw eh. Meron pang ilang araw. Yun nga yung away ngayon eh. 'Di ba kahapon sa plenary, inong sinasabi, sabi ni Coco, ba't wala sa ating agenda?
Okay.
No? Ba't wala sa ating agenda? No? But pinalagay, so pumayag ilagay. Pero initially wala eh. Hindi nakalagay sa agenda ng Senate, 'di ba?
And on that note, let's bring in our first guest for today. We've got Attorney Paulo Tamase. He's the Assistant Professor at the UP College of Law and is an expert on the Constitution. Welcome to Storycon, Attorney. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Attorney.
Good afternoon, attorney. No, nagtatalo kaming mga amateur dito eh. Kaya kailangan namin ng learned.
Kailangan namin ng expert attorney
Kailangan
because
namin ng learned dahil kahapon, habang nakikinig ako sa plenary hearing at saka dun sa press con ni Senate President, parang walang binabanggit na konstitusyon eh.
Actually, Ronald, pati yung mga abogado hindi nagkakasundo sa mga interpretasyon ng kung ano-ano eh.
Oo, ako hindi ko pa
Kanya-
ako hindi ko pa ako
kanya-kanyang
hindi ko pa
interpretation.
nagamit yung kwan na yon, yung phrase na yon. If at all. Ngayon siguro gagamitin ko na rin, no?
Kanya-kanya yun eh. Abogado rin si si Cheese, remember?
If at all.
Pero to Ami's point, attorney, I think for the most part, yung mga constitutional law experts are in agreement, aren't they?
Yes, everyone has been in agreement that um, that the Senate has a duty to actually take on the
Yes.
impeachment and to start the trial. If you go back to the debates in February, yung source of disagreement minor lang eh. It was basically, can they hold it whether the Senate is in session, when the Senate is in recess rather, or does it have to be in session? That was rendered moot yesterday when the Senate came into session. So regardless of where you stood, no, kung pwede ba sila impeachment trial during the recess, tapos na yun kahapon. The expectation was that they would have started the trial yesterday. Because as everyone has pointed out, the Constitution does direct trial to proceed forthwith, no, right away. In official Tagalog translation, agad-agad.
Okay. Attorney, sorry, I have
Me
to
to make
interrupt
some
you at this
announcements
point to throw to the live briefing of ES Bersamin.
Performance evaluation of the various offices and agencies of the executive branch. Let me first announce the people whose resignations have been accepted. Take note of this. Those whose resignations have been accepted are the following: Chairperson and Chief Executive Officer Maynardo Sabili of the Presidential Commission for the Urban Poor. Mr. Terence C. Calatrava, Presidential Assistant for the Visayas. And Mr. Almarim C. Tila, Presidential Assistant on Muslim Affairs. Terminated is Mr. Menandro M. Espinelli, Presidential Advisor for Special Concerns. Now, as far as new appointments are concerned, I have to announce that today the President has appointed Attorney Francis Edralin Lim as the incoming chairperson of the Securities and Exchange Commission. He will take over from the incumbent chairman Emilio Aquino, whose term will expire on June 5, 2025. Attorney Lim is a distinguished member of the legal and financial communities. He has an extensive background in corporate and securities law. He previously served as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Philippine Stock Exchange and is a senior partner at Accra Law. Attorney Lim is also a former trustee and president of the Shareholders Association of the Philippines. He has contributed significantly to investor protection and market transparency through both his professional work and his academic involvement. He brings to this office decades of experience in corporate law, governance, and capital markets regulation. His leadership is expected to strengthen investor confidence and further promote transparency, innovation, and inclusive growth in the Philippine financial sector. At this time, we would like to tell the people that the President is deliberating on his first historic appointment to the Supreme Court. We received the list from the JBC only recently, and he is poised to make his first appointment in that court. we cannot make any announcements yet on who his choice will be. The next part of these announcements will dwell on which of the cabinet secretaries and high officials will be retained. This has come to be important to us because we have to clear the uncertainties in many agencies and offices. So please pay attention to this. The resignations of the following have been declined by the President. That means they will continue to serve in their respective offices. Department of Agriculture Secretary Francisco P. Chu Laurel Jr. DAR Secretary Conrado M. Estrella III. DepEd Secretary Juan Edgardo M. Angara. TESDA Secretary Jose Francisco Benitez. DOL Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma. DSWD Secretary Rexlon Gatchalian. DOH Secretary Chodoro Herbosa. DMW Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak. DOST Secretary Renato Sulidom Jr. DOT Secretary Maria Esperanza Cristina Frasco. DICT Secretary Henry Ruel Aguda. DOTR Secretary Vivencio B. Dizon II. DPWH Secretary Manuel Bunuan. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Juan Ponce Enrile. PMS Secretary Elaine T. Masukat. MMDA Chairman Romando Artes. MINDA Chairman Leo Tereso Magno. Secretary Antonio G. Sariles, Presidential Advisor for Mindanao Concerns. BIR Commissioner Romeo D. Lumagi Jr. Bureau of Customs Commissioner Bienvenido Rubio. Treasurer of the Philippines, Sharon P. Almanza. At this point, may I also add a clarification. When we made that announcement regarding the forthcoming designation of Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Enrique Manalo, to be the next permanent representative of the Philippines in the United Nations. This will take effect most likely August 1. But because of the necessity for him to be confirmed before going over to as permanent envoy to the United Nations, the President recognizes the designation to be considered as done only after his confirmation. In the meanwhile, he will remain as the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. In the meanwhile, because there was a misunderstanding maybe about when he would really stop performing or discharging his duties as Secretary. So I am now ready to receive your questions. Okay. May I just make this additional point? That means that Secretary Manalo's courtesy resignation was declined. He continues to be the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. It's necessary to clarify that because there should be no uncertainty about his status. Okay, I may now accept your questions.
Ivan Mayrina, GMA News.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes.
With the announcement on the cabinet secretaries whose courtesy resignations were declined, it appears that this performance review was not as sweeping as the public may have anticipated.
Well, if you are asking for blood, there will still be blood. But, we are still undertaking continuing performance evaluations even of those undersecretaries or those lower than the cabinet rank functionaries. I assure you that this is a very sweeping and thorough evaluation being made by the President and the panel of his choice regarding those who will be remaining in office, and those who will be ultimately ousted.
But at least for the major departments, wala hong masyadong movement. So does the President expect changes in how these departments are run with the same heads?
That's a very good question. No? All of them who have been retained, including myself, are expected to give fresh attention to the mandates and to give more performance, show more performance in our respective areas. And if you will note, these secretaries whose resignations have been declined need to be announced, because there have been many speculations that have been going around, and they have been the victims of intrigues and harassment from many quarters. That's why we came out today with an announcement of who they are, because it's just simple justice to them.
Thank you.
Ace Romero, Philippine Star.
Secretary, yung mga kalihim po na hindi ninyo nabanggit, we can assume na ongoing pa po yung performance review sa kanilang performance.
You're right. Yes, that's true.
May we ask for the reasons why yung mga nabanggit po ninyo na nauna kanina, tinanggap yung kanilang pagbibitiw?
Well, these are the officers of various ranks. May undersecretary, may secretary, may assistant secretary ang levels. Well, the assessments about them is that they did not perform up to par. That's the assumption. So we will just leave it at that.
Jean Mangaluz, philstar.com.
Good morning, Secretary. Are we still assessing? Good afternoon. Are we still assessing the chiefs of the GOCCs?
Yes. The chiefs of the GOCCs, as I mentioned last time, is that they are subject to the yearly review by the GCG. But their heads of offices, they will surely be assessed by us. Okay? So the annual review by the GCG is mandated by law. The GCG law requires this to happen in the middle of every year. So about now, June. We do not know what the GCG is going to recommend, but on our part, as far as the heads of the GOCCs are concerned, we will surely come up with announcements very soon.
Tristan Nodalo, Newswatch Plus.
Hey sir, good afternoon. Sir, just siguro a follow-up lang din. No? Given nga po yung line-up ng mga hindi po tinanggap na resignation o nagstay na cabinet members, may marching orders po ba sa kanila yung Pangulo now that sila yung magko-continue nung last 3 years na term?
Well, the President will give individual marching orders to all of them. And as of now, it will not be convenient for us to mention what are those marching orders. But definitely they know that the President demands the highest degree of performance. And those who have not been retained know also where they have failed or where they were short in delivery.
Siguro sir, message na lang po sa public na baka isipin nila wala namang nagbago sa lineup of cabinet secretaries at the very least, yung marami pong natira na sila rin naman. Ano pong mensahe nyo sir sa publiko?
Well, alam nyo, ito ang gusto kong maintindihan ninyo. No? The President is a manager. He has his own levels of achievement that he has imposed on each of us in the cabinet. And his expectations are there. And it is only the President who can decide if we performed up to par or we delivered on those promises or the expectations that he gave to us, announced to us at the beginning. And because of this, the President might have probably, most likely, determined that most of these whom he retained have performed at par. Because otherwise, he would surely have fired them. You know, this is not a purge. You must understand that. That's why we went to the courtesy resignation as the means for implementing this reorganization. But, you know, even if you have been retained now, you will still be expected to make your, to deliver on your marching orders. And these are very specific to each of these respective officials of government.
Maricel Halili, News 5.
Magandang hapon po, sir. Sir, yun pong na-mention ninyo kanina ng mga officials who will be replaced. What are the reasons that the President decided to remove them from the post? Are they involved in particular issues or just failure to meet the expectations of the President?
Yes. Good that you asked that because, you know, these are the presidential advisors, presidential assistants. No? There are many of them. And the four whom we have named today were probably those that the President, as of now, has determined that they have not delivered on their respective mandates. I will not delve into the details because they are not to be, they're of different categories, okay? But let us assume that the President has good reasons, the best reasons, not to continue with their services as of this time.
Any more questions? Tristan Nadalo, Newswatch.
Sir, last na lang po. Yung performance review, sir, are we going to expect na every year gagawin to ng Pangulo or depende po sa kanya?
Yeah, that's a good question also because performance evaluation is ongoing every time. The President may even terminate or remove any of us. We are at his will. Okay. If the performance evaluation is a continuing process, you can be sure that at any time, any who is not performing according to standards of the President will be replaced or relocated. That's what we do sometimes.
If there are no more questions, thank you very much, Executive Secretary Lucas P. Bersamin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nasa PCO.
Oo. Okay, there you have it. Third round of, I can't even say culling, pero third round of the announcements regarding the cabinet revamp. Ano yung takeaway mo, Ami? Do we have Ami? Anong takeaway mo, Ronald?
Relocated.
No revamp.
The word for the day, relocated.
No revamp.
para mga...
Hindi ba tinanggal? Mga advisor lang yun eh.
Oo nga.
Yes.
Hindi nga kilala ni Kwan. Ni Reggie.
Nearly the entire cabinet retained.
Oo.
That's the story.
Yes.
Sino pang nawala dyan? Wala na ako Sino pang malaking ano dyan? Wala na.
Wala. I mean, apart from yung in-announce nung first round,
Pero
Wala na.
na-announce ba, Ami, kung na-retain si Secretary Anyo?
hindi siya na-mention.
Hindi siya na-mention.
Hindi siya nabanggit. Hindi
Diba?
natanong, ano?
Oo.
Katanong na lang ng belated. May
Dapat,
mga kulang pa dyan actually. Yung mga bureau, yung malalaking bureau, wala pa eh. Pero yung cabinet, it's not a cabinet revamp.
Yeah.
Di ba?
oo.
Well, he said,
Yan na yung pinakamalalaki. Ano pang wala dyan? Sige nga.
Oo. Yung kalahati ni-relocate.
Oh, yun.
Di ba? Yung kalahati na-relocate. Doon sa...
Binawi pa nga yung kay DFA Manalo eh.
Oo nga. Kaya ka na-relocate ka.
No, although hanggang August lang yun. Hanggang August.
so when this all happened, nung in-announce, yung first time in-announce yung cabinet revamp, they called it a bold reset, right? Yun yung in-expect natin.
Baka ibang klaseng spelling yun, hindi bold.
Baka...
Baka hindi bold reset.
Baka
Bald reset.
BALD.
And the promise back
BLD.
then was, yun nga, yung mga underperforming agencies will see drastic changes.
Pwede naman gawin yun lang, hindi mo ina-announce yung revamp. Usually,
Pwede naman, correct, diretso na lang, di ba?
Yung section eh,
Pwede na
oo.
lang. So which brings us to the question of bakit kailangan mass resignation? Why do you have to wipe the slate clean in order to take out some minor actors?
yun nga yung
Right.
problema pag hindi mo ibuhos ng one blow. Dahil kung kwan siya, dahan-dahan, magiging subject siya sa mga lobbying, pressures, no? At tingin ko, isa yun sa nangyari.
Behind the scenes, there was lobbying na
yung
feel
mga
mo.
backers,
Oo.
no, yung mga backers ng mga cabinet secretaries, no, magbibigay kayo ng pressure. Huwag nyo nang tanggalin, no, okay yan, ganyan, etc. So, yun ang nangyari. Buti naman, na-retain si Kakdak dahil
Yes,
magaling
I've heard
at
good things about
Oo.
DMW Secretary
Dahil
Kakdak.
before kasi nasa chopping block siya. No? Kaya, ayun.
Over the 1.4 billion land acquisition issue, pero mukhang si Kakdak yung
Buti naman. Paano? Siya yung nag-revamp sa departamento
yes,
niya.
siya yung nag-ayos ng issue. He's the one
Pero
who
lahat ng
went
frontline, lahat ng frontline retained, ha?
Correct. DA, DSWD,
Entire frontline
DPWH.
retained.
Oo.
Wala na akong makitang malaking cabinet. Wala nang natitira. Wala na.
Nawala na yung
That's it.
Oh,
That's it, pansit.
Balik tayo
That's it, pandit.
Balik tayo sa
Pero
impeachment.
kayong guest, balik na tayo doon sa isa pang gulo.
Sorry,
Doon na lang.
sorry, attorney,
Kasi wala naman nangyari sa ano.
Sorry, attorney, may
Ang gulo
sumingit
ng,
eh.
ang gulo ng bansa natin. Attorney, pasensya ka na.
Akala namin may revamp eh.
Okay, anyways, coming back to Attorney Tamase. Attorney, so si outgoing Senator Francis Tolentino, when he gave a speech, he brought up something called the Jefferson's Manual of Parliamentary Practice, which is found in the Constitution in the States. Ang argument niya was this clause says, hindi pwede tumawid yung impeachment across Congresses. You have a different take on it. Talk us through that.
Yes, I think when Senator Tolentino referred to Jefferson's manual, he was referring to this more general laws na legislative business cannot continue beyond Congress or a parliament. And that's correct, right? If you have a pending bill in the 19th Congress, it really can't continue, let's say, kung second reading na siya now, it can't continue as second reading in the 20th. It has to be refiled. But I think Senator Tolentino may have overlooked two provisions or two sections of Jefferson's manual, which I write in this piece in the Philippine Law Journal, which was also released yesterday, where there was really an explicit mention that impeachment can be dealt with by the next Congress. So the dissolution of Parliament does not result in the discontinuation of impeachment. So it can continue despite or the shift in Congress that we're expecting to happen on June 30.
So
Diba,
almost parang hindi niya binasa in full or something, or mali yung interpretation niya is what...
Si Jefferson ang binabasa niya.
Kaya-
may kaunting kaibahan. Kaya nga hiniwalay yung articles of impeachment, hiniwalay sa 87 Constitution dun sa definition ng Senate as a legislative body. Hiniwalay siya dahil accountability yan eh. Accountability. At very specific yung nakalagay doon sa accountability. No? Korte ka na eh. Sui generis yung sinasabi nila. Kaya baka okay naman na may kinuha tayo sa US system, pero meron ding kaibahan. No?
Guardrails.
Lalo na yung mga discussions mismo doon sa 87 Constitution. Yun ang mas mahalaga. No? Kaya hindi naman na en toto ginaya natin yung US system. Bagamat may mga kinuha tayo ron.
Yes. I think that's correct. No? I mean, if you look at the U.S. Constitution, they deal with impeachment in the same article as they deal with the legislative branch. So Article 1 yan for them. And in the Philippines, we have a special article on accountability of public officers, where impeachment is not addressed to Congress; it's addressed to the Senate and the House, which means that may sense that they transcend to a higher body when they deal with these issues of impeachment. But even if we look at the source that cited and was mentioning yesterday, it's clear from that source itself that even Jefferson looked into this issue and said himself that if you look at parliamentary practice, pwede tumawid. No? So I think they may have, or the team of Senator Tolentino may have overlooked that particular provision of Jefferson's manual.
Kainuman kasi ng
Di
lolo
ba
ko si
iba-ibang
Jefferson.
interpretation yan? Is it open to interpretation?
Parang
hindi
hindi
kasi ngayon dito sa sui generis na anything goes na eh. Pwede bang ganun yun? Wala bang mga baseline dyan na hindi pwedeng baguhin?
I think there's a temptation to look at it as open to everything. You know? We only have impeachment trials once every decade. And therefore, wala tayong robust practice on how these things are done. But what scholars invite the Senate to consider is that these provisions in the Constitution, kahit hindi laging malinaw yung sinasabi nila, is to always read it with the lens of accountability. What is the interpretation of these provisions that will further constitutional accountability? And it seems that delaying the trial or even canceling it entirely, despite what the Constitution says, doesn't really seem to further that idea of accountability.
Yeah. Actually, I took a screenshot of that particular page on the article that you wrote for the Law Journal, and the exact phrasing here is, an impeachment is not discontinued by the dissolution of Parliament, but may be resumed by the new Parliament. That seems to be the key phrase here. That to me is clear as day.
By Senator Tolentino.
Yun na nga eh. So that to me, when I read that, is clear as day, and I don't know why the differing interpretation or where the differing interpretation is coming from. Kasi klaro naman yung words, even for non-lawyers like us.
Yeah, it's many possible reasons. For one is, it's an American source, so baka hindi masyadong familiar yung Philippine researchers with it. The second might be it's not a short document, so it's a very thick document of parliamentary procedure. And unless you were looking for this very specific item, it's easy to lose. So maybe reading it in the best light.
At saka siyempre, tinitingnan nila yan sa lens kung ano yung kanilang political objective. No? Na i-influensyahan yan ng kanilang lens. Kung ang position naman talaga nila, wag matuloy ang impeachment, so i-interpret nila yan in such a way. Diba?
That's what's sad about this. It was meant to be a political exercise. Pero nahaluan na ng partisan politics is what
in the
we're saying.
Philippines, everything is political. Yun ang problema.
Ikaw naman, para ka nasa ibang planeta. Ibang bansa yan.
Hindi, kababalik lang niya ng Pilipinas. Pasensya mo na.
Oo nga.
Dati si Ronald, ibang kuweba lang ina-accuse sa akin. Ngayon, ibang planeta na.
Actually, Reg raises an interesting point about the apolitical exercise. If you look at the history of impeachment, it's always been considered as somewhat political. It's why we don't apply the standards of judges. But in the Philippines, there's a unique development where the Senate takes an oath to remain politically neutral during impeachment. So I think they recognize themselves when you do this very rare task of saying whether this person should be removed from office or this high public official should be disqualified forever. parang it calls to your, better sense of looking at the Constitution objectively, looking at the evidence objectively. And to a certain extent, I guess, because lawyers are by nature trained to fight for certain positions, it's very hard to remain neutral on this procedural issue of whether it can cross to the next Congress.
Tsaka yung oath kasi is one of the weakest element ng ating mga politicians.
Yes.
Hindi pa nga sila nag-oath di ba? Wala pang oath dyan sa impeachment
Nagsabi na sila.
Pinagawa lang nila yung gown nila. Kaya wala pa. Nagpagawa pa lang ng gown para sa oath-taking.
The reading of the
Umupa lang
charges.
yata, umupa.
The reading
Umupa ng gown.
the reading of the charges was meant to be yesterday, tapos na move to
Yeah.
June 11. In your view, not clearly, but in your view, has this violated the spirit of the Constitution? The fact that June na, hindi pa rin nasa start, and recall that Vice President Duterte was impeached on February 25, if I recall correctly. February.
Well,
27.
27. Basta February, yes.
to be frank, the Constitution gives a lot of power to the Senate on on how to hold the trial. And if it sees on its own honest assessment that this is proceeding forthwith, then sa kanila yun, it's our job as voters to not vote them into office if they violate that duty. But I do think that the spirit of the Constitution has been breached in a sense, because if you look at the drafting history of the 87 Constitution, mas mahaba yung impeachment provisions dyan than any other previous Philippine Constitution. And it's precisely because right before Marcos Sr. was removed from office, there was an impeachment attempt. And there were attempts within the House or within the Batasang Pambansa. Napatulugin din yung impeachment. So the 87 Constitution purposely included, strange provisions on periods, on when it should start, kung gaano siya dapat kabilis, that when the House receives a complaint, it's referred within a certain number of business days, Committee on Justice, because the framers understood that it could be abused by yung discretion. And yet I think, you see that ultimately, the Constitution relies also on public officials doing their job honestly in order for the systems of checks and balances to work.
And just very quickly, Attorney, since you're saying that na-breach na yung spirit of the Constitution, we are still a democracy. What can the people do? Can anyone just file a complaint to that effect? The fact that the Senate has not exercised its duty.
Yeah, so it's not that type of duty, I think, in the Constitution. It's moral duty that's given to the senators to start the trial right away. But it's not something, in my view at least, that can be immediately enforced in court. There might be circumstances in the future that will call for that. But maybe now is not the time yet. So the real solution is when these people are up for ballot, again, when in the next election, is to think about what they have done with regard to the question of impeachment.
Doon sila hatulan.
Doon sila hatulan. Yun yung design talaga ng sistema natin.
Except, don't we all have a short memory?
Oh, yes, so that's another matter.
Well, we will constantly remind voters.
I will leave that there for now. Thank you so much for your insights and for joining Storycon today. UP College of Law Assistant Professor Paolo Tomas.
Sana maimbita namin kayo uli, Attorney.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Attorney.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining Storycon. That's Ami Pamituan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, and Ronald Llamas, a resident political pundit, as always. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay. We are One News, all sides, all the time.